is Nick Felton. I am a 32-year veteran on the New Orleans Fire Department. Ended up, assigned into the rank of fire captain. I was in charge of an engine company, Engine 21. We called it Blackjack 21. And we were kind of in the midst of things, needless to say, during Hurricane Katrina. I'm also the union president and have been on the union's executive board for, get this, about 32 years also. So that tells you where my involvement has been. But since the year 2000, I've been the chief principal officer and president of Local 632. Disaster and disaster preparedness. I think preparation is really, really important for everybody. And it's going to change a little bit with design and structure because of your events and your geography. But preparedness and getting your fire department ready, getting your members ready, getting their family members ready, and knowing and having the tools and having a good working disaster plan was absolutely critical in our ability to excel during Hurricane Katrina. We effectively made over 19,000 water rescues during the storm. During that time, we also had a plethora of fires that contained itself. Unfortunately, some of the people out there did things illegally because many people had homeowners insurance, but that would cover them for fire, but they didn't have flood insurance for rising waters. So after the waters went down, that's when a lot of the houses started to burn up. Not necessarily, but it still happened. And I can't tell you how having that plan really meant the difference. So let's talk first about initializing and getting things done. In your pre-planning, as we all do, I think it's really important that let's look at the business community first. Okay, and you need to sit down and go and have a hands-on visit with them. Evaluate what your needs are going to be. For example, us being in the city below water, we recognize that rising water was an event. Fortunately, as old as I am, I had been through quite a few hurricanes, serious hurricanes. I was in Hurricane Betsy. I was in Hurricane Camille, not on the fire department. But right before I did come on the fire department. And those were two devastating storms that had similar results for the area. Rising water, people trapped. But the Hurricane Katrina issue brought rising water in just about every part of the city. So there's an issue of getting boats. There's an issue of talking to the business community where you get them on board to realize that the resources that they may have, trucks, food, fresh water, is going to be something that you're going to want to make sure you get ready and have that days out process. Certain things trigger for us. And while folks think I was a little insane, but truthfully, hurricanes are my preferred natural disaster. I mean, we had a week almost to prepare for a storm that was headed this way. Unfortunately, in your area, you have things like earthquakes and you have things like wildland fires, grass fires, that don't give you that type of early warning. So it's going to be real imperative that you get ready earlier on and be able to pull a trigger. And then the next thing is have somebody in your policy and procedure who will call that shot, saying that we are activating disaster plan ABC. And everybody has their job and duties. The next thing in that plan is about 30 days before that season starts, which is usually around in the end of May for us. We sit down and start sending out a few emails and memos to the members saying, you really need to get your own personal life in check. Similarly, like we tell folks for a fire plan, we tell the public to come out there and make sure that if there is a fire, this is where we're gonna all meet, this is what we're gonna all do, these are your responsibilities, this is my responsibility, and go over it and make sure it's fresh prior to the need for it. Another thing that really, really helped matters. There is a relocation issue with families. When there are large-scale disasters like Katrina, folks had to go somewhere else other than New Orleans. And they knew that, okay, I have friends in Houston, or I had friends in Dallas, or I had friends in Miami, or Monroe, or, Tennessee somewhere, Memphis or something. So those families knew how to get in contact. But what really came to bear, and was very helpful, was the start of cell phones, text messaging. And now I think another component that we are adding in is the social media issue. Facebook and Twitter is unbelievably helpful in the right tools, and those systems tend to stay up longer when power and towers start to go out. And last but not least, is putting all of those things together for an ability for you to be able to communicate once things do go bad. I could tell you, I had about 22 firefighters under my command at my command post where I was in the central part of New Orleans. And it was unbelievable. As soon as we either had a cellular communication that finally got through, a text message that finally got through, or in our case, I was a little bit more prepared. I had a satellite phone. When those firefighters actually talked to their loved ones who had evacuated to Houston or evacuated to Miami, and they just heard their voice, they knew they were okay. And their family knew that they were okay. The whole attitude changed. This firefighter was now even more ready to get out there and continue his job and stay another few weeks. The biggest problem is an exit strategy. If you have a very lengthy event, it is going to be imperative that, just like in a fire, those first-in companies get replaced and fresh people come in, even if it's outsiders. These things need to be, self-deployment is tough, and everybody's doing their own little thing, and it doesn't work to the greater good. Sometimes it can even cause you a problem. Okay, and I'll just give you a quick example. We had a lot of folks that just came in. There was a group of firefighters, I believe from Toronto, that commandeered a boat north of Baton Rouge and drove down the river and went down into the parish below here, the county below here in St. Bernard, where they had 30 feet of water. And they just showed up. I mean, it was like the cavalry coming over, and it was great to see them. Okay, but at the end of the day, they had provisions, water, food, clothing that were only gonna last them for about 4 or 5 days. Now, after day 7, day 8, those individuals are starting to get very antsy. So that became a problem situation while they were trying to do good. Just once again, I'm going to keep referring back to just like we do it in the fire service. Okay, we have a plan of action. We know if engine 10 goes out and with a ladder company, who's going to hook up to the hydrant, who's going to go in, who's going to advance a hose line, who's going to do search and rescue, who's cutting off the utilities, who's doing ladder pipe operations, etc. And you walk through that. I can't tell you, folks just knew what they were doing. The last point on the preparation end from the fire side is it's gotta have your medical evaluation on a daily basis. Company officers need to be trained to look at their men physically, to look for, because you gotta worry about infection. We had rising water. Tetanus was a big issue, okay? And then the next thing, mentally. And we teamed up with some of the local people, Dr. Osofsky, here that dealt with mental health, and we did evaluate folks when they came up and they were coming out, when we were extracting them out, and they went through a short evaluation and they were given options and people, and that continued on for over a year after the incident actually happened and things were getting back to normal. coupling that with that, in as large events as it was, we had probably 20 to 30, I would just say, incidents where people did lose a loved one, either directly related to the storm or indirectly. For example, we had one particular person whose, parents, drowned. And at that particular point, we had to extract that individual. We had to get them out to their family members who were on the West Coast, matter of fact, and try to make a bad situation not turn to be an awful situation. And that is all of those things that you kind of have to realize that will happen, especially in a long, large, elongated incident. So you got to understand people will have to deal with that. For the first 10 to 12 days, things were very unsettled as far as crowd control and civil unrest. As I was telling you about how we would leave in the evenings to go refill the helicopters and do what we needed. When we left, people were scared, and that's when shooting started. They said, "Don't you leave." They started shooting at us. And and when situations get like that, it brings another dynamic to your survival. And accidents happen. Once again, that planning and just sitting down and going through those scenarios. What are we gonna do? Ask those questions. Because right now, you should have it. If all of a sudden there's fire outside that door, what are we gonna do? Boom, you know that. And it's real easy once you know, instead of saying, "Oh, what should I do?"